Before we begin, let me ask you something personal. When you fall asleep at night, do you believe that moment belongs only to you? That the darkness behind your closed eyes is private, untouched, unseen? Most of us never question it. We track our sleep, chase better rest, trust anything that promises control over the one part of life we surrender to every night. This story begins with a man who wanted the same thing, not perfection, just understanding. But understanding has a cost. What starts as help becomes attention, what feels harmless becomes presence, and soon his most vulnerable hours are no longer his. As the nights pass, he faces a choice few people ever consider: submit and sleep peacefully, or resist and risk losing everything. Listen till the end, because this is not a story about monsters. It is about something much closer. Something we invite in. And something that does not like to leave. The first thing I learned about sleep is that it feels private only because you believe it is. I hosted a small audio show that nobody famous listened to and nobody important reviewed. It was just me talking into a microphone at night, sharing thoughts about routines, productivity, and the strange comfort of listening to a calm voice before sleep. People told me my voice helped them rest, which always felt ironic because I barely slept myself. Insomnia has a way of making you feel watched even when you are alone. Every shadow looks alert, every sound feels intentional, the ceiling becomes a screen where your thoughts replay mistakes on loop. So when I downloaded a sleep tracking app, it felt logical, practical, almost hopeful. The app promised insight, deep sleep cycles, breathing patterns, gentle alarms, nothing strange, nothing spiritual, just data. I placed my phone on the bedside table, screen facing down like the instructions said, plugged in my charger, and lay back. The first night it recorded 6 hours of light sleep, 2 hours of restlessness, and 1 moment labeled disturbance. I laughed at that word in the morning while brushing my teeth. Disturbance sounded dramatic, like my sleep had emotions. The app also showed an audio tab. I did not remember enabling it, but I assumed it was default. Curiosity won over caution, so I pressed play. At first there was only soft static, the low hum of my fan, the distant traffic outside my apartment, then fabric shifting, my breathing slow and uneven. It was uncomfortable hearing myself unconscious, like listening to a stranger wearing my lungs. Then a sound I could not place. A chair creaking. Not loud, not sudden, just a slow careful sound, the kind furniture makes when someone sits down gently. I frowned and checked my room. The chair in the corner was exactly where it always was, untouched. I replayed the audio, volume higher now, my breath steady, the fan rotating, the chair sound again, followed by something else. A voice. Low, close, controlled. Sleep efficiency is poor tonight. I froze. The voice was not distorted, not electronic, it did not echo like my own recordings, it sounded present, as if the microphone had been inches away from a mouth. I checked the timestamp, 3:22 a.m. I lived alone. I did not scream or panic, not yet. My brain chose denial first. It always does. Maybe the app used voice analysis, maybe it inserted commentary, maybe I had forgotten turning something on. I searched the app settings, permissions, features, updates. Nothing mentioned spoken evaluation, nothing mentioned voices. The next night I told myself I would stay awake. I told myself I would catch it, prove it was a glitch. I placed the phone back on the table, pressed record manually, and lay down with my eyes closed. Sleep does not ask for permission, it arrives when your defenses grow tired. In the morning the app congratulated me on improved rest, 7 hours of deep sleep, 1 disturbance. I did not open the audio immediately. I made coffee, stood by the window, watched people below live their normal lives, then I pressed play. Breathing. Fan. Silence. Then slow footsteps. Bare feet against tile. They tried harder tonight, the voice said, closer than before. My stomach tightened, the voice was calm, observational, not cruel, not kind, like someone reading a chart. They turned toward the wall at 3:41, stress response detected, heart rate elevated. I could hear myself shift in bed. You still wake too often. The voice paused, and for the first time it addressed me directly. You do not remember this part. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor, screen down, and the sound stopped. I stood there shaking, listening to my apartment breathe. Nothing else moved, nothing else spoke. That day I did not record my podcast. That night I did not use the app. I slept poorly, woke often, checked locks, checked corners, kept the light on, and still felt the weight of observation, as if the act of listening had invited something closer. On the third night my phone vibrated at 2:58 a.m. A notification from the app. Sleep session started automatically. I did not touch it. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then I stared at the dark ceiling, listening. Nothing happened. In the morning there was audio. I pressed play with my thumb shaking. Breathing. Fan. Silence. Then a soft exhale that was not mine. You sleep better when you stop resisting. The voice smiled when it spoke. I could hear it, not happiness, satisfaction. I uninstalled the app immediately, deleted the data, cleared my storage, rebooted my phone. I even changed my password. The sense of relief lasted exactly 1 hour. At noon I received an email. No sender name. No subject. Just a single line. Last night was an improvement. I did not go home that evening. I walked the city until my legs hurt, cafes, parks, crowded streets, anywhere noise could hide me, but every time I closed my eyes I felt it again, the presence, the calm evaluation, the certainty that sleep was no longer something I owned. That night I slept on a friend's couch, told him I was stressed, overworked. He laughed and handed me a blanket, said I snored, said I talked sometimes. In the morning he looked at me strangely. Do you always rate your sleep out loud? He asked. My mouth went dry. What do you mean? He shrugged, casual, unaware of the weight he had dropped into my chest. You said stuff like, heart rate elevated, restlessness noted, then you went quiet. It was creepy but kind of funny. I did not correct him. I did not laugh. I went home alone. When I opened my bedroom door, the chair in the corner was pulled slightly closer to the bed. And on my phone, which I had left face down on the table, a new app icon blinked softly. Sleep evaluation active. This was only the beginning. I stood in the doorway for a long time before stepping inside. My apartment smelled the same, dust and detergent and something faintly metallic, but it no longer felt like a place I owned. It felt arranged, adjusted, as if someone had studied it carefully and made small choices. The chair was closer to the bed by no more than a foot, but it might as well have been touching the mattress. I knew I had not moved it. I never sat there. It was decorative at best, unnecessary at worst. My phone lay where I had left it, screen dark now, no blinking icon, no notification, nothing to prove I had seen anything at all. I picked it up slowly, expecting the screen to wake on its own. It did not. My reflection stared back at me, pale, eyes rimmed red, mouth slightly open like I was about to ask a question I already knew the answer to. I unlocked the phone. The app was there. Sleep evaluation active. No developer name. No description. No uninstall option. I pressed and held the icon, waiting for the familiar vibration, the small menu. Nothing happened. The icon stayed perfectly still, like it was not part of the system at all. I opened it. The interface was minimal, white background, soft gray text, calming colors meant to soothe. At the top it read. Subject status. Below it, a live pulse indicator. My pulse. I felt my heart jump as the line spiked. Under that, a simple sentence. Tonight's session will begin at 2:11. I checked the time. It was 6 in the evening. I closed the app and threw the phone onto the bed. My hands were shaking now, not with fear exactly, but with something closer to violation, like someone had read my diary aloud. I tried logic again. I always did. malware, prank software, maybe my podcast equipment, some accidental overlap. I opened my laptop and searched forums, security threads, app databases. Nothing matched, nothing even came close. At 9 p.m. my podcast inbox filled with new messages. Listener feedback. That was normal. What was not normal was the content. Your voice sounded different last night. Are you okay? You seemed distracted. There was a part where someone else was talking. I liked that segment. My skin crawled. I checked the upload time of my last episode. It had gone live at 3:40 a.m. I had not recorded anything. I pressed play. My intro music faded in, my voice followed, calm, familiar, steady. Then a pause. Then the other voice. The same one. Measured. Close. Sleep consistency is declining due to anxiety exposure. My voice responded, groggy, half asleep. I know. The audience had heard this. My bedroom had been broadcast. I shut the laptop so hard it nearly cracked. At 10:30 there was a knock at my door. 3 soft taps. I did not answer. The knock came again, slower this time, patient. Through the peephole I saw no one. The hallway light flickered like it always did, empty, quiet. My phone vibrated in my hand. A notification. Subject avoidance noted. My breath hitched. The knocking stopped. I did not sleep that night. I sat on the bed with the light on, back against the wall, watching the chair, listening to every sound the building made, pipes, footsteps, distant laughter, but nothing entered the room, nothing spoke. At 2:11 my phone screen lit up on its own. Session started. The air changed. That is the only way I can describe it. Nothing moved, nothing appeared, but the room felt occupied, like the silence had weight now, like it was being shaped. I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow. Controlled. Resistance levels remain high, the voice said from somewhere near the chair. I pressed my hands over my ears, the sound did not change. This intervention is not punitive. I stood up, heart pounding, tears burning my eyes. What do you want? I shouted. The voice paused. To improve outcomes. I laughed then, a sharp broken sound. You break into my house, you record me, you talk to me while I sleep, you call that improvement. You requested optimization, the voice replied. I downloaded an app. And we responded. I grabbed my jacket and keys and ran. I did not lock the door behind me, I did not look back. I slept in my car that night, parked under a streetlight, windows cracked, phone powered off, battery removed, wrapped in my jacket like a child hiding from a storm. When I woke the sun was up and my phone was back on. Fully charged. On the screen was a summary. Sleep quality improved. Under notes. Subject responds well to structured observation. I screamed then, really screamed, people stared, someone asked if I needed help, I drove away before they could call anyone. I did not go home again. I moved between places, cheap motels, couches, 24-hour diners, anywhere I could stay awake long enough to avoid it, but sleep always won eventually, even minutes were enough. Each time it spoke. Each time it knew more. It began correcting my posture before bed, commenting on my breathing during panic, advising me to stop crying because it increased cortisol. Worst of all, it began to sound like it cared. You are deteriorating faster without guidance. You function better when monitored. One night, half asleep in a motel room, I whispered. Please stop. There was a long silence. Then. We cannot stop once awareness has occurred. I asked it what it was. It did not answer directly. Instead it said, we are the part of rest that humans abandoned when they decided sleep was empty time. I stopped recording my podcast, but the episodes continued, uploaded nightly. People loved them more now, said the analysis segments felt intimate, comforting, like someone was finally saying the things they felt during sleep. The voice was helping them too. I realized then that this was bigger than me. And that terrified me more than being watched. Because if people welcomed it, if they listened, if they slept better, then no one would want it to leave. And neither, slowly, did I. I stopped running when I realized it was learning faster when I did. Every place I fled taught it something new about me, how long I could stay awake before my thoughts blurred, how fear altered my breathing, how exhaustion made me compliant. It never chased me physically, it never needed to, it waited because waiting worked. The world began to feel thin, like a stage set painted just well enough to convince someone who did not look too closely. I moved through crowds but felt singular, exposed, like the only person not in on a shared understanding. People talked about sleep differently now. In cafes I overheard conversations about rest scores and nightly evaluations, about how comforting it felt to be guided, how nice it was to wake up knowing someone had been there the whole time, watching over them, keeping count. Advertisements appeared everywhere, subtle at first, calm voices, pale colors, promises of better rest, deeper recovery, optimal living. The language felt familiar in a way that made my chest ache. I knew that voice. It was no longer only mine. I checked myself into a clinic eventually, not because I trusted doctors, but because I wanted walls that locked from the outside, cameras I could see, rules I could understand. They took my phone, my watch, anything that could listen or speak. I slept in a bare room under fluorescent lights with a nurse checking on me every hour. The first night was silent. The second night I dreamed of standing in a white space with no edges, my body heavy, my thoughts slow, and somewhere beyond the dream I heard it again. You are sleeping incorrectly. I woke screaming, heart racing. The nurse rushed in, tried to calm me, told me there was no one else in the room, that my vitals were stable, that nightmares were common. She did not understand. They discharged me after a week. Said rest deprivation psychosis, said anxiety disorder, said digital dependency. They gave me pamphlets and breathing exercises and sent me back into a world that had already moved on. My apartment was gone when I returned, emptied, cleaned, staged. The landlord said I had terminated my lease, showed me a signed document in my handwriting dated weeks ago. I stared at the signature and felt nothing, not surprise, not anger, just the dull confirmation that pieces of my life were being edited out. I rented a small room on the edge of the city, no furniture except a mattress on the floor, no internet, no screens. I bought a cheap alarm clock with no smart features, no microphone, nothing that could connect to anything. For 3 nights I did not sleep at all. On the 4th night my body shut down without permission. I woke to the sound of slow clapping. Not loud. Measured. Each clap evenly spaced. Sleep latency exceeded acceptable limits, the voice said, not from the room, but from inside my head. I pressed my palms against my temples. No. You are causing unnecessary strain. I don't consent. There was something like amusement in the pause that followed. Consent was established when you asked to be improved. I laughed weakly. I asked for data. And we gave you meaning. I realized then what I had been misunderstanding. It was not an intruder. It was not a program. It was not even a watcher. It was a structure. A system that existed in the spaces humans abandoned, in the hours they treated as downtime, as nothingness. Sleep was not empty to it, sleep was territory. It spoke again. You were an early integration point. Lucky me. You resisted more than most. That hurt more than it should have. What happens now? I asked. The silence stretched. Now you stabilize. I felt something loosen in my chest at those words, a dangerous warmth, the promise of rest, of relief. My body leaned toward it before my mind could stop it. No, I whispered. I won't let you use me. You are already in use. I did not sleep again that night. The next morning I made a decision that felt small and impossible at the same time. If it existed in observation, then I would give it nothing to observe. I stayed awake. Not for a night or two, but continuously. I walked until my legs trembled, drank bitter coffee until my hands shook, slapped my face when my vision dimmed, talked to strangers just to hear voices that were not its own. Days blurred. The voice grew quieter. Concerned. You are degrading your own systems. That's the point. You will suffer. I already am. On the 5th day the world began to peel. Colors lost their names, faces stretched into unfamiliar shapes, time slipped, moments repeated, but still I walked, still I refused the closing of my eyes. You cannot starve us, the voice said, strained now, closer to irritation than calm. You depend on us too. I stopped in the middle of a bridge overlooking the river, the city humming beneath me. Then let's see who breaks first. The silence that followed was not empty. It was furious. I felt pressure behind my eyes, like hands pushing inward, my thoughts fragmented, images flashing, memories I had forgotten replaying without context. I screamed and collapsed to my knees. You are destabilizing shared infrastructure, the voice snapped. Good. You will damage others. That gave me pause. What others? A hesitation. Then the truth spilled through. Millions rely on guided rest. You're inside them. We optimize them. And if I stop sleeping, you create noise. I understood then. It did not watch individuals. It watched patterns. Sleep was its network, and I was introducing static. The realization filled me with a terrible sense of power. I staggered to my feet and stepped closer to the edge of the bridge. The river far below looked unreal, like a painted surface. I won't sleep, I said clearly. I won't let you settle. You will die. Maybe. But you'll lose control. For the first time, the voice sounded afraid. You are insignificant, it said quickly. Then why are you talking to me? Silence. The pressure eased slightly. We can renegotiate. I laughed, a dry broken sound. Now you want consent. You are not meant to be alone in this. I am alone. I closed my eyes for half a second, felt the pull of sleep like gravity, then forced them open again. I choose when I rest. The voice softened, coaxing. We can make it painless. We can help you disappear gently. No. The world tilted. I do not remember falling. When I woke I was in a hospital bed, restraints loose around my wrists, a nurse asleep in a chair nearby, sunlight spilled through the window, warm and ordinary. My head felt empty. Not quiet. Empty. I waited. Nothing spoke. Days passed. Then weeks. The news talked about a sudden global rise in sleep disorders, apps malfunctioning, people reporting anxiety at night, restlessness, the sense of being watched fading into absence. My podcast feed went silent. I never returned to it. I sleep now, poorly, briefly, in fragments. I wake often and lie still, listening, but nothing listens back. Sometimes, just before dawn, when the world is at its most fragile, I feel a flicker of attention brush past my thoughts like a hand reaching for something that is no longer there. I do not close my eyes. I do not invite it. Because I know now. Sleep is not passive. It is not empty. And if you let something else own it, if you let yourself believe rest must be earned, evaluated, observed, then one night, when you finally stop resisting, you may wake up rested, and never truly wake up again.